Hi, welcome to the second segment of the presentation on bioethics and testing and treatment of Alzheimer's. My name is Amy Jaeger. I'm an attorney in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I really want to welcome everybody who's participating remotely in this conference. I promised you a very special guest, and I am really pleased that with me for this segment is Dr. Stephen Lindheim. I'm going to let Dr. Lindheim introduce himself, and then Dr. Lindheim and I are going to have a conversation about testing and treatments for Alzheimer's disease. So Steve, hi.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for inviting me today. For everyone, Amy and I have known each other now probably close to 20 years, although she's probably not willing to admit that. I've been around the block. I am currently a professor at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. I've done a lot of work in the world of assisted reproductive technology and trying to diagnose disorders preconceptual, and those raise a number of ethical quandaries. And I think that's why Amy has invited me to give sort of my perspective on this severely debilitating disease.
Okay. So, Dr. Lindheim, do you know what kinds of tests are available right now for somebody that might be experiencing certain symptoms that are related to dementia, or somebody who doesn't have any symptoms yet?
Well, my understanding of Alzheimer's disease is there may be some role of beta amyloid in plaque development in the brain, and there is a marker. It's called IFITM3 that has been discovered to play a key role in the accumulation of this beta amyloid plaques. The IFITM3 is also referred to as interferon-induced transmembrane protein 3, and it's a modulatory protein, and it's thought to have some inflammatory mechanism that affects the generation of these amyloid plaques. It has been found to be increased in a subset of patients with late onset Alzheimer's disease, and potentially could be used as a biomarker to identify a subset of patients who might benefit from therapies targeted against this marker.
So the therapies would try to reduce the inflammation to try to prevent the plaques from forming?
Correct.
I think a lot of people are just petrified at the idea of being diagnosed with or living with Alzheimer's disease or another dementia. How do you address somebody's fear about the disease?
It's really terrifying for patients. And it's almost like a labeling phenomenon. When you think that you have this, you think that your life is ended, and it's a shame that we even have to use this term because there are differential diagnoses for patients that have altered mental capacities, and it could be simply dementia related to infectious etiologies or causes. It could be thyroid dysfunction. It could be anemias. So when people say that I have Alzheimer's disease, that's not necessarily true. And as soon as you get labeled, it creates this whole bag of worms.
Yeah, indeed, as we know. So one of the things that I am really interested in your role as a reproductive endocrinologist, when you're counseling patients that have come in because they've experienced a family history and they're coming to you, I mean, what is that like when you're working with patients and thinking through whether or not to perform certain types of genetic or other diagnostic tests, either on the people that are creating their family or perhaps on the embryos? What is that counseling like? Could you just kind of walk it through how you help them think through what to do and how to do, and importantly, when to do?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, how accurate is the marker that you're looking Um, it, is it a dead bullseye that you actually have the disease or may progress to that disease? So we need to be really careful whether it's Alzheimer's or any other type of disease, and that, is it, how predictive is it going to be that you're actually going to get the disease? Just because you may have the marker doesn't necessarily predict that you're actually going to get the disease as well. So the first thing that I make patients think about is that would they do something, with the disease, if they're going to get it, or perhaps an offspring may potentially get this disease. And um, if they if they think that they would do something about it, the question is the treatment actually going to make a difference? Do they want to worry about it in hopes that perhaps maybe that, or not in hopes, but worry about that they may even have the disease? Is that going to make a difference for them? And for some people, maybe they're not even going to do the treatment, but maybe that they would start doing interventions that may have an impact that could reduce the full-blown presentation of Alzheimer's disease. So that's how I get people to sort of think about, what would they do with this type of testing. I'll give you, perhaps if I can give you an example. Another example would be, some people may say that they don't want to, or that we have availability genetic testing to evaluate a certain disease. And some people will be like, you know what, I want to prevent this completely. I don't want an offspring, for example, to have this disease. And then and that would be appropriate to do that testing so that you can prevent that from happening. But then again, some people are reticent to knowing if they have the disease, because they would be like, well, I'm not going to do anything. And then next question that I say is, oh, but wait a second, you may not do anything about it. For example, not terminate a pregnancy if we're going to the extreme of assisted reproduction. And but would you deliver that baby in a special place to take care of that child, to give them the best ability to handle the onset of the disease? And when somebody reflects on that, they're like, wow, I didn't think of it that way. They're thinking of, I would, it's in God's hands. So why would I do anything to, prevent that from happening? And that makes all the sense in the world. You don't ever have to do anything about it. But I think in the back end of it, if you can plan and mitigate the expression of the disease to you, or potentially help the loved ones around you by securing the right type of help, the right types of potential treatments that may help you, that doing some type of diagnostic evaluation, has merit or value. If you don't want to know, and you wouldn't do anything differently, then you shouldn't do that testing. And the same thing would, I would then say to other patients, as they're considering having a baby and they have the ability to do genetic testing, those are the reasons that you would, consider evaluation and potential interventions. So I hope that makes some sense.
It's super interesting. So I think sometimes um, thinking about Alzheimer's or living with dementia is so frightening because we don't really know what the path is going to look like, but we know the end of the path is death. And so there's this feeling that if there were treatments that would alleviate the onset of the dementia or mitigate the severity of the dementia that the person lives with, there might be more of a reason to have a test or to have a diagnostic, to undergo diagnosis, because you could do something about it in terms of treatment. So how do you think about getting the information when there is really no or very little effective treatments available?
I think that you just need to be aware of, maybe the potential changes that may occur. I think that it would start with knowing what the impact is on society. let me give you a few important pieces of information. Alzheimer's disease is the sixth leading cause of death in the United States. More than 5 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's. 1 in 3 senior citizens dies with Alzheimer's or another dementia, and it kills more than breast cancer and prostate cancer together. If you can put it in terms of dollars, in 2020, we are spending, it costs us as a nation $305 billion. And in the next 30 years, it's estimated to be about 1.1 trillion. And here's the last bit of information. Between 2000 and 2018, from deaths from heart disease have decreased by almost 8%, while the deaths from Alzheimer's disease have increased almost 15%. So recognizing that should ignite us into thinking, what would be useful in terms of tools to help us. And unfortunately, there isn't one diagnostic test that's accurate, that's predictive, but there are, some mental cognition evaluators or tests that can be done that may give us, some thought that some form of dementia is taking place. And I think if we make that a public, health awareness issue, that we are getting older, and it's okay that we're going to slow down a little bit, and that recognize that if we are having some subtle changes, that we can be proactive and get some type of intervention, whether it's assisted care or maybe sometimes some of these treatment interventions that can help us lead, continue to lead productive lives as we move into the final frontier of our lives.
Right. I mean, also lifestyle changes like exercise and other things that could at least make you feel better, or help, or allow you to maintain your mobility while you're experiencing other different challenges. I
Yeah,
mean,
there's I've seen exercise related interventions as you begin the shuffle, or as your balance and equilibrium start to change, that things like yoga and Pilates can be very helpful, is that you can adjust different muscles in your body to help overcome other areas that you may be lacking in. And I think that this is really useful, as opposed to sitting at home and making the situation potentially worse.
so it's a perfect segue, Steve, because the program for this week on dementia possibilities, there's many of the presenters that are artists and art therapists. So we're including poetry, collage, painting, music in the afternoon of each day to help engage both caregivers and people living with dementia to enjoy their life, just to enjoy it. And so I know the numbers are staggering, and just wanted to echo that this is a national public health issue, that all of us can continue to talk about how important it is, both in terms of treatment and prevention of Alzheimer's, to the extent that there are things that we can do to stay healthy and slow cognitive decline, if that's what we're facing. Part of that, there's a couple of wonderful resources, and one of them that I've really enjoyed is this book by Tia Powell called Dementia Reimagined. And she talks a lot about caring for her mother, and how, as a physician, she felt that she kind of had all the answers because, she's experienced working with patients, and that how her worldview changed when she started taking care of her mother, who was living with dementia, and how she found joy in her mother's honesty about her relationship, to Tia, to her daughter, and the mother's relationship to the world. So I just want to kind of, even though the numbers are staggering and we don't have a lot of treatments, there still can be a lot of joy and a lot of life to live, even in the face of dementia. So.
Very good.
I want to thank you so much for your time today, for your insight, for your wisdom and your kindness. I'm in working with your patients and sharing your knowledge with us today.
My pleasure.
So thank you.
Thank you for having me.